New today from the tight Senate race in Texas, a warning from the incumbent Senator Ted Cruz on how fired up Texas Democrats are for the midterms.
We've got numbers on our side. There are a lot more conservatives than there are liberals. What the O'Rourke campaign has had on their side is intensity. The liberals who are in Texas are really, really mad. They hate President Trump. That anger is dangerous. I mean, that anger is mobilizing. It means they're going to show up no matter what. As I've said, they'll crawl over broken glass to show up.
Joining me now, Victoria DeFrancesco, professor at the University of Texas and an MSNBC contributor. Victoria, were you surprised to hear Ted Cruz go out that so emphatically, saying that fired-up Democrats are going to crawl over broken glass to oppose this president?
Alex, he is feeling the heat, and it's really exciting here in Texas because we really haven't seen such a competitive race, at least as long as I can remember. Just to give you an idea, the polls, the early voting polls closed here yesterday on Friday, and we saw more people vote in early voting here in Texas than the whole voting period, the day of voting and early voting in 2014. So Texans are fired up, and his read is correct. Ted Cruz's read that folks on the left and on the right are fired up, because let's not forget that President Trump has been firing up the base, as has Ted Cruz as well. So he's being a bit disingenuous and saying that it's something that just Beto O'Rourke is doing.
I want to ask about the Latino vote, because the Dallas Morning News reports that the candidates are targeting new voters with Spanish language ads. And that's because Latino participation is usually low. How about this year? What are you seeing?
So we do see estimates of an increase in Latino voters. We're seeing estimates that over 1 million Latino voters are going to be coming out in 2018, about a 1.5 increase from the last midterm election. So that's the good news. We do see Latinos being targeted, trying to expand the electorate out, because we know that Latinos, even though we have a big chunk of Latinos in Texas, they don't tend to vote in such high numbers. So that's the good news. The bad news is they're not being contacted or mobilized at the rates that they would need to be to get them to the polls in numbers such as African Americans and whites. We saw that the National Association of Latino Elected Officials and Latino Decisions recently did a poll in the last 2-3 weeks that showed that 58% of Latinos are still not getting contacted by the campaigns, and that is worrisome. So I think good work, but still a lot more work to be done to get Latinos to turn out.
But are those same people, are they just unaware of the president's rhetoric on that caravan that's heading that way? Wouldn't you think that would fire them up and get them out to the polls?
I think it absolutely makes folks angry. There is no doubt about that. But the question is, what is the message to mobilize them? So you can be angry, but are you also excited? What is the pull? So we see there's the push and the pull factor when it comes to voting. And the key is for the Democrats to pull Latino voters, give them something, and not just rely on the push factor and the anger fueled by the immigration rhetoric and what we're seeing in terms of 15,000 troops being sent to our border. I mean, President Trump talks about a crisis. He is creating a crisis.
Yeah.
You know, I have family on the border. I've been down to the border. I keep looking for this crisis, and I just don't see one.
Does either party misread the most important thing for Latino voters? Is it immigration? Is it the economy? Is it health care? What is it?
We see poll after poll, it is health care. So Latino folks tend to be lower socioeconomic status. They are in need of the health care subsidies. For example, in Texas, we didn't have the Medicaid expansion, so that weighs heavily on the minds of Latinos here in Texas. So health care, and not to say that immigration doesn't matter, but in a day in, day out bread and butter issue, we know that health care really matters to Latinos. And, you know, and that is what Beto O'Rourke has been campaigning on. He says, you know, we need to get leaders in Washington that will be responsive to your needs, highlighting that Ted Cruz has not done that, but actively fought against that in trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act.
Well, according to Gallup, health care is the #1 issue for voters across this country, across the board. Sure. Victoria DeFrancesco, awfully good to talk with you as always. Thank you, my friend. Coming up next, star power and